Have you ever felt yourself being pulled away by the expectations of others? We live in an era where the gaze of the outside world almost dictates the emotions within. Each morning as you wake, with just a single swipe across your phone screen, you are flooded with images. Friends flaunting their luxurious vacations, colleagues sharing their latest achievements, and an acquaintance showing off their physique after months of training. And in that very moment, your mind is thrown into the whirlpool of comparison. Why can they achieve this, while I still haven't? Comparison seems to have become an unconscious habit. We compare jobs, salaries, appearances, even happiness itself. Yet the more we compare, the more disheartened we feel. Instead of walking on our own path, we are drawn into an invisible race where the finish line is never clear. Many people enthusiastically embark on new plans with the hope of proving themselves a diet, a skills course, a workout routine. But soon, that excitement fades, leaving only exhaustion and emptiness. The bigger question that must be asked is this: what would happen if you stopped comparing yourself to others? If you ceased measuring your worth by the eyes and opinions of the outside world, what would change? Perhaps the answer would surprise many. Not only would you rediscover peace, but you would also become so different that others cannot help but be astonished. Why is that? Because people are accustomed to seeing you caught in that cycle. They are used to watching you react to every remark, used to seeing you seek approval, used to watching you struggle for recognition. And when you no longer live that way, when you choose to focus inward, to master yourself, you become an unpredictable enigma. Your calmness and steadfastness become a silent, yet powerful, shock to those around you. This is precisely the spirit that Stoic philosophy has reminded humanity of for more than 2,000 years. The Stoics taught that the only thing you truly control is your own thoughts and actions. External circumstances, public opinion, fortune, or adversity all lie beyond your grasp. If you try to hold on to them, you will only exhaust yourself. But if you turn inward, you will discover an enduring strength. Marcus Aurelius stands as a clear testament. Amid the immense responsibility of ruling an empire, he still devoted time to writing meditations, not to win the praise of future generations, but to discipline himself, to keep his mind tranquil amidst turmoil. That inward focus helped make him one of the greatest leaders in history. Today, in a world louder and more distracting than ever before, that Stoic reminder is all the more necessary, because when you learn to turn inward, to invest in yourself instead of being swept away by the external, you not only free yourself from the burden of comparison, but also uncover a strength so profound it leaves the world astonished. And that is precisely the journey we shall embark on together. Focus on yourself and shock everyone. Stoicism. Part 1. Why is focusing on yourself so important? To truly understand why focusing on yourself is so crucial, we must first confront a harsh truth. The modern world is not designed for you to live in peace. It is built to seize your attention, to pull you in every direction, to keep you constantly comparing and unsettled. Each day, you absorb hundreds of messages from the outside. Advertisements suggest that you need a new item to be happier. Social media emphasizes that someone out there is living better than you. more successful than you, happier than you. Even at the workplace, the pressure of promotion, targets, and recognition from colleagues and superiors never ceases to surround you. In this relentless cycle, your emotions are constantly swayed, joyful when praised, downcast when criticized, anxious when you feel left behind. The price for this dependence is steep. You no longer govern your emotions. A single careless remark can ruin your entire day. A simple comparison can rob you of confidence. Gradually, you no longer live by your own will, but as if you are always on stage, needing the audience's applause just to keep performing. The Stoics saw this vicious cycle thousands of years ago. Epictetus once said, "If someone can provoke you to anger, they become your master." Replace anger with any emotion, joy, sadness, fear, or insecurity. The moment you hand over the power to dictate your emotions to others, you have lost your freedom. And the slavery of modern times is not made of visible chains, but of invisible dependence within the mind. Imagine an office worker. He works hard, yet his joy depends entirely on his boss's praise. One compliment can lift his spirit for the whole day, but one criticism can crush him, making him doubt his worth. Or picture a young woman spending hours editing a photo before posting it online, then spending the day fixated on the number of likes. If few people respond, she feels sad, unattractive, unworthy. Her emotions are now dictated entirely by the screen taps of others. This is the harsh truth. Most of us have surrendered control of our lives to external forces. Instead of building strength from within, we desperately chase approval from the outside. And the more we seek it, the deeper we fall into a never-ending spiral. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Do not let your mind be distracted by too many things. Only one thing matters. Keep your soul tranquil." That reminder remains as vital today as it was then. For if you do not guard your focus, the world will steal it from you, piece by piece. The modern world creates the illusion that you are free, but in reality, you are being led. True freedom does not come from having more choices. It comes from not being shaken by those choices. When you let others decide your joys and sorrows, you have lost the most precious right of all, the right to rule yourself. So, where do you begin if you want to reclaim your freedom? The Stoics give a clear answer. Turn inward, focus on yourself. Regain control of your mind, your emotions, and your actions. In the next part, we will explore the core lesson. Stoicism leaves us. Focusing on yourself is not selfishness. It is an act of courage, and the most essential investment you can ever make in your life. Part 2. The core lesson. Focus on yourself. After confronting the harsh truth that the modern world is constantly seeking to control our minds, the natural question arises, what must we do to break free? The answer does not lie in trying to control or change the world, but in a path both familiar and powerful, focusing on yourself. This is not just advice, but the very core principle of Stoic philosophy, repeated and handed down for thousands of years. Imagine your life as a house. If its foundation is weak, even a light gust of wind can shake and collapse it. But if you build it with solid bricks, cared for health, cultivated intellect, disciplined habits, then no storm outside can bring it down. Focusing on yourself is the act of constructing that inner house. Each good habit, each disciplined action, each sound thought is a brick. The more persistent you are, the stronger that house becomes. And when your inner foundation is solid, you no longer fear the gaze of others, you are no longer wounded by criticism, nor do you rush to prove your worth. The Stoics believed that if one desires a tranquil life, it must begin with mastering the inner self. The world outside may shift endlessly, but your mind can become a fortress if you know how to build it. This may sound ordinary, but in truth, it is an act of great courage. Focusing on yourself is not indifference to the world, nor is it selfishness, concerned only with personal gain. On the contrary, it is an active choice. You decide to invest your time and energy into what is truly within your control. You do not waste them chasing public opinion or the gaze of others, but devote them to caring for your health, cultivating virtue, refining your intellect, and nurturing confidence. One of the most common misconceptions is to equate focusing on oneself with selfishness, but the truth is the exact opposite. Selfishness is wanting only to take without giving, wanting only to satisfy desires without regard for consequences. Focusing on yourself, however, is entirely different. You train yourself to be strong, and by doing so, you gain the ability to contribute more to the world. A person who is exhausted, anxious, and dependent on the opinions of others cannot truly be of help to anyone. Only when you have good health, a clear mind, and a tranquil heart can you become a steadfast support for those around you. Seneca once wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is a powerful reminder. When you focus on yourself, you are performing the most courageous act, reclaiming mastery over your own life. It is not withdrawal from the world, but the building of strength so that you may face the world without being swept away. When we speak of investment, we often think of money, property, or a career, but the most enduring investment is in yourself. If you care for your health, you will have the energy to pursue long-term goals. If you sharpen your intellect, you will have the wisdom to make sound decisions. If you develop skills, you will gain confidence and open doors to new opportunities. If you practice discipline, you will build trust in yourself, a form of strength nothing else can replace. All of these are inner assets, untouchable by anyone else. Wealth may vanish, reputation may fade, but mental strength and self-mastery forever belong to you. We often think freedom means doing whatever we want, but for the Stoics, true freedom is the ability not to be controlled by external forces. When you focus on yourself, you are no longer swayed by praise or blame, not unsettled by comparison, not dictated by public opinion. You live a life that may appear simple on the outside, but within is a fortress of resilience. And that freedom comes only when you choose to direct your energy toward what you can control. Marcus Aurelius is a vivid example. As emperor of a vast empire, he could have easily sought comfort in power or glory, yet he chose another path. Meditations was not a book written for the world, but reminders for himself. To act with dignity, to live according to reason, to keep his mind calm even when the world was in chaos. On every page, we see a man in relentless self-discipline, unwavering in his focus on himself. And it is precisely this that made Marcus Aurelius remembered as one of history's greatest and most respected leaders. The core lesson of Stoicism is clear: focus on yourself. Build your inner foundation like a solid house. Invest in health, wisdom, and discipline. Live free by mastering yourself. This is not selfishness, but courage. It is not detachment from the world, but the only way you can truly contribute to it. And when you practice this principle, you will not only feel stronger and calmer, but you will also create a remarkable effect. You will astonish, even shock, others because they have grown used to seeing you in a different version of yourself. The question then arises, why does focusing on yourself shock people? The answer will come in the next part. Part 3. Why does focusing on yourself shock others? When we hear the words shock others, most of us imagine loud, unusual, or rebellious actions. Yet, in the spirit of Stoicism, the true shock does not come from external noise, but from the quiet strength within. In a society where most people are accustomed to living dependent on the gaze of others, the moment you dare to turn inward, to focus on yourself, you become something different. And it is precisely this silent difference that carries the power to astonish, even overwhelm, those around you. Human beings are accustomed to defining their lives by reactions. When praised, we rejoice. When criticized, we feel sad. When attacked, we retaliate. When ignored, we feel hurt. Most of us live like puppets, our strings held by external circumstances. People have grown used to watching you react to every word of praise or blame, every glance, every gesture. But when you begin to focus on yourself, you completely change that pattern. You learn to pause, breathe, observe your emotions, and choose your response instead of reacting blindly. You stay silent when attacked, remain calm when belittled, and even refuse to let your joy depend on compliments. Others see this change and become unsettled. They realize you are no longer easily swayed, and that calmness itself becomes a shock. Beyond this, people are also accustomed to seeing you seek approval. In modern society, we share nearly everything: our joys, our sorrows, even our vulnerabilities, all in pursuit of comfort, empathy, or affirmation. People are used to seeing you crave attention, await advice, or count likes to measure your worth. But when you focus on yourself, you gradually shed this need. You no longer live by the eyes of others to know whether you are right or wrong. You act based on inner values, not the applause of the crowd. And when others realize you can stand firm without their validation, they cannot comprehend it. To them, it is now both strange and unsettling. And that self-mastery once again becomes a silent shock. In a competitive society, boasting and proving oneself have almost become norms. People flaunt wealth, achievements, knowledge, even their austerity. Everything can become a tool for display. But when you focus on yourself, you no longer need to. You choose to learn quietly, to train quietly, to progress quietly. You let change speak for itself, without justification. Others see you rise in silence, without boasting, without display, and they are astonished. In a world rushing to show off, your silence infused with strength becomes a powerful shock. Another habit is equally common: comparison. People are used to seeing you trapped in that endless cycle. You compare jobs, appearances, and happiness. And it is precisely that constant comparison that robs you of peace. But when you focus on yourself, you step outside of that vicious loop. You compare only with who you were yesterday. Each day, you improve a little more, establish a new habit, and refine a skill. You become your only rival. Others cannot understand why you remain calm when someone else succeeds. They cannot fathom why you stay intensely focused on your own journey. And that lack of understanding becomes astonishment, a gentle yet profound shock. History, too, proves this truth. Marcus Aurelius, during his reign, faced wars, rebellions, and plagues. He could easily have relied on power and grandeur to secure his position. Yet instead, he chose to focus on himself. Meditations, his writings were not composed for the public, but as daily reminders to himself, to act with virtue, to keep his mind calm, to remain steadfast in reason. It was precisely this inward focus that made him one of the most respected emperors in history. Seneca, a man of wealth and influence, chose a simple life, at times deliberately eating frugally and sleeping on hard floors. Others looked on in surprise, even confusion. Why would someone who had everything choose deprivation? But for Seneca, it was not a performance, but a reminder to himself that happiness comes not from comforts, but from self-mastery. That choice itself was a shock to those still enslaved by material dependence. And perhaps the greatest shock of all comes from tranquility. People often believe that to shock means to be dramatic, intense, or noisy. Yet, in reality, the most powerful shock comes from stillness. When others see that you are no longer controlled by praise or blame, no longer shaken by comparisons, no longer needing validation, they will be astonished. Astonished because you have broken free from the chains they still wear. Astonished because you found freedom in a place they never thought to look. And that shock harms no one, yet it compels them to reflect, to look back at themselves. Thus, focusing on yourself not only grants you freedom and strength, but also naturally becomes a shock to those around you. Not because you seek to be different, but because society has grown too accustomed to dependence. When you step outside of that circle, you become living proof of inner power. In the next part, we will explore one of the greatest traps of the digital age, the trap of comparison. It is the very cause that leaves millions exhausted yet unable to find true peace. More importantly, we will see how Stoic philosophy can guide you out of this invisible snare. Part 4. The modern mistake, the trap of comparison. We are living in an age where comparison has become an unconscious habit. Just a few minutes on your phone, and you are faced with countless images of others. A colleague promoted, an old friend buying a new house, someone online traveling abroad, another showing off their ideal physique. In that instant, you begin to ask yourself, why can they do it, and I haven't yet? And so you fall once again into the familiar trap, the trap of comparison. This trap is dangerous because it operates quietly but persistently. It robs you of joy in the present, makes you forget your own path while chasing an endless race. On social media, there will always be someone ahead of you, richer, more attractive, more successful. And when you keep staring at their light, you unwittingly let darkness envelop you. Comparison not only steals joy, but it also erodes persistence. Think back. How many times have you started a new plan just because someone else succeeded? You began dieting because a friend lost weight. You enrolled in a skills course because someone advanced thanks to knowledge. You trained hard because others were admired for their physique. Yet, when the initial excitement faded, you easily quit. The reason is clear. Your motivation came from comparison, not from within. The Stoics warned of this long ago. Epictetus reminded, "Do not let the wealth of another make you sad. Remember that your happiness lies in what is within your control." When you compare, you are trying to cling to what is not yours, the life, choices, or results of another. And that is a massive waste. Another consequence of comparison is dependence. You begin to measure your worth through the eyes of others. A photo with many likes brings joy, too few, and you despair. A compliment excites you, a criticism crushes you. Your mood rises and falls like a boat tossed by waves, and the danger lies in the fact that the helm of that boat is in someone else's hands. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Others may act as they choose, but I should concern myself only with whether I am acting with reason." This is a crystal clear reminder. Your true value does not lie in someone else's position, but in whether you are living faithfully to yourself. Once you understand this, comparison gradually loses its grip. And yet, why do we still so easily fall into this trap? Because comparison gives the mind a short-term high, like sugar. When we feel superior to someone, we feel proud. When we feel inferior, we experience a temporary burst of motivation. But like sugar, comparison offers only fleeting stimulation while leaving behind a long emptiness. It cannot sustain genuine growth because the drive comes from outside, not within. The Stoics suggested another path. Replace comparing with others by comparing with yourself of yesterday. Ask, am I better today than I was yesterday? Have I managed my emotions better? Have I grown in discipline? When comparison turns inward, it becomes a tool for growth instead of a burden that drains you. The trap of comparison is one of the most common mistakes of the digital age, where images and information are magnified every second. Yet you can escape it by remembering this. All external measures of value are meaningless if you cannot master what is inside. As Marcus Aurelius said, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if you will ever dig." If you are courageous enough to stop comparing and start focusing on yourself, you will find life lighter, freer. Most importantly, you will reclaim the helm of your ship, no longer letting it be swept away by the waves of public opinion. In the next part, we will arrive at the central message of this journey. When you focus on yourself, you not only find freedom and strength, but also bring about a change so profound it surprises others. For the greatest shock you can give the world is the quiet, steadfast growth of your own character. Part 5. Inner Freedom and Strength. After navigating the invisible traps of modern life, we can draw a simple yet profound conclusion. All lasting change begins with focusing on yourself. This is not selfishness, but the foundation of freedom. And it is precisely this freedom that creates the strength which astonishes others. When you focus on yourself, you begin to see that your true worth does not lie in the gaze of others, but in your inner steadfastness. You no longer live to please, to prove, to compare. You live to refine yourself, to become a better version of who you were yesterday. And when you sustain that consistency, you naturally radiate an energy that draws attention. The shock here is not a noisy explosion. It comes from quiet growth. People are used to seeing you restless, easily swayed, but now they see someone calm, grounded, and unshakable. That contrast unsettles them, and at times that shock carries the power to awaken. It makes them wonder why they remain trapped in the cycle of comparison while you have found freedom. Stoicism emphasizes this truth. Real freedom is the ability not to be controlled by external forces. When you are no longer governed by praise or blame, no longer shaken by comparison, dependent on approval to move forward, you have touched freedom. And from that freedom, an inner strength is unlocked. Remember, you do not need to shout to prove you are strong. You only need to train quietly each day. You do not need to argue to prove you are right. You only need to live true to your values. You do not need to flaunt achievements. You only need to let progress speak for itself. It is this very quietness that leaves others astonished. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less. But not by doing nothing, do only what is essential." That reminder remains just as true for us today. When you focus on what is essential, health, virtue, wisdom, you not only find peace, but also build genuine strength. And once that strength is revealed, it needs no promotion. It naturally astonishes. In a world full of chaos, a person who is calm and self-controlled is already a rare phenomenon. The central message here is clear: honor yourself. Accept that your value does not depend on the opinions of the crowd. Choose to live a life aligned with what you truly desire, not what others expect of you. For when you patiently nurture growth, you not only surprise the world, you surprise yourself with the vastness of your own potential. In the next part, we will move into a more practical question. How do you begin? What concrete steps can help you focus on yourself, cultivate resilience, and build inner strength day by day? This will be the path of practice, transforming Stoic philosophy into a living habit, rather than leaving it as mere theory. Part 6. Practice. Where to begin? Stoic philosophy will forever remain dry words on a page unless we turn it into daily action. Inner strength does not arise from lofty thoughts, but is built from small acts, repeated each day, practiced with persistence until they become part of your very nature. The practical question we must ask is, how do we begin to focus on ourselves? One of the most powerful tools is journaling. Marcus Aurelius left us meditations not for posterity, but as a dialogue with himself. Each page was filled with questions, self-admonitions, and reflections on how to live in harmony with reason. You can do the same by setting aside a few minutes each day to write down 3 things: what you did well today, where you fell short, and how you will improve tomorrow. This simple act helps you stop comparing yourself to others and instead focus on becoming a better version of yourself. Another crucial step is the cultivation of daily discipline. Discipline is not restriction, it is the foundation of freedom. A person without discipline is controlled by moods and circumstances. A disciplined person does what is necessary, even without motivation. You can start small. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Do light exercise. Read a few pages, or write out your goals for the day. What matters is not how much you do, but that you do it consistently. It is this steady repetition that builds strength and establishes trust in yourself. In today's noisy world, you must also practice stillness. The Stoics saw stillness as a vital exercise to observe emotions without rushing to react. You can practice through meditation, slow walks, or simply sitting quietly for a few minutes without touching your phone. In that silence, you hear your inner voice more clearly, and you distinguish what truly matters from what is mere noise. Another powerful method is voluntary discomfort, deliberately placing yourself in small hardships. Seneca once advised his students to sometimes eat modestly and wear coarse clothing, as a reminder that happiness does not depend on luxury. Today, you might apply this by taking cold showers, practicing intermittent fasting, walking instead of driving, or unplugging from social media for a few days. These challenges are not about punishing yourself, but about proving to yourself that you are stronger than you think, and that you can live peacefully even without familiar comforts. If all practices were to be distilled into two core principles, they would be consistency and self-love. Consistency means it does not matter whether you move fast or slow, only that you move steadily. One small step each day, over time, creates great change. Self-love does not mean indulgence, but giving yourself the respect you deserve. You eat healthy because you love your body. You keep learning because you love your mind. You practice discipline because you love your life and refuse to let it be dictated by external forces. The point is this: philosophy must become a way of living. When you practice journaling, maintain discipline, preserve stillness, challenge yourself with small discomforts, and nurture true self-love, you will notice a gradual transformation. You will become calmer in the face of praise or criticism, less entangled in comparison, and more focused on your own journey. And this transformation, accumulated over the years, will make others take notice. Stoicism was never meant only to be read. It was meant to be lived, applied, and practiced each day. When you embody its principles in action, you not only cultivate inner strength, but also become a living testament to a life of freedom and resilience. In the final part, we will look back at the entire journey and draw one powerful reminder. Greatness does not come from a sudden decision, but from the steadfastness to hold that decision day after day. Part 7. Conclusion. The reminder. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth stands clear. Focusing on yourself is not selfishness. It is the only way to reclaim freedom and inner strength. In a noisy world, where people are easily swept into the whirlpool of comparison and the search for approval, turning inward is the most courageous choice we can make. Think back. When you let others decide your joy or sorrow, you have surrendered control. When you allow social media, public opinion, or the gaze of others to define your worth, you become a prisoner of what never truly belonged to you. But when you begin to focus on yourself, training your body, cultivating your mind, building discipline, nurturing tranquility, you not only reclaim mastery, but you also become a version of yourself that surprises others. The shock here does not come from loud, dramatic change, but from quiet growth. People are used to seeing you easily swayed, comparing, and easily seeking approval, but then they see you calm, steady, no longer dependent on anyone's gaze. That difference itself becomes a powerful reminder to those still trapped in the cycle of comparison. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if you will ever dig." This is not merely advice, but truth. When you are courageous enough to turn inward, you discover a strength you never knew before. A strength no one can take away, because it does not depend on externals, it comes from within you. The most important lesson to remember is this: greatness does not come from a sudden decision, but from the steadfastness to uphold that decision every day. One workout, one journal entry, one moment of stillness, small acts like these, repeated over time, create a new self. And when that change grows strong enough, you will see not only that the world views you differently, but that you yourself are astonished by your own strength. So begin today. Write down one small action you will take to focus on yourself. It could be building a habit, reading a single page, or simply sitting quietly for a few minutes to listen to yourself. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. When you stay committed to this path, you will realize that focusing on yourself not only helps you live a more peaceful life, but also allows you to shine most naturally. And it is this quiet light that becomes the most beautiful shock you can bring to the world. If you find these reflections helpful, subscribe to the channel to continue walking with me on the journey of discovering and applying Stoic philosophy to life. Each week, you will receive new reminders, stories, and practices to live a stronger and calmer life. Remember this: focusing on yourself is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about becoming strong enough to step fully into it, to live true to your values, and to let your silent progress become the answer that astonishes the world.